here is extra practice with variation of parameters, but this time where the matrix A is not constant anymore. So let's use var of par to find a particular solution to x prime equals ax plus f, where A is the matrix 1 over t minus 1, 1, 1 over t, and f is the inhomogeneous term t minus t. And in this case, this will be given, assume the homogeneous solution is C1 t sine of t minus t cosine t plus C2 t cosine t t sine of t. The cool thing is, once you have the homogeneous solution, which we have now, the rest is just applying the var of par method. So step 1. Again, what does var of par assume? It says the particular solution is the same form as the homogeneous solution, except the coefficients of functions here. So t sine of t minus t cosine t plus v of t, t cosine t, and then t sine of t. var of par equation still the same. So homogeneous solution, so t sine of t minus t cosine t, and then t cosine t, t sine t, times u prime v prime, so u prime t v prime t, equals inhomogeneous term, so t minus t. And we just need to solve it using Cramer's rule. So step 2. So first of all, let's deal with the denominator. It's like the terminator of math, the denominator. So t sine of t minus t cosine t, t cosine t, and then t sine t. So again, AD minus BC. So this becomes t squared sine squared t, and careful, minus minus, so plus t squared cosine squared t, which is really t squared sine squared t plus cosine squared t, which simplifies quite nicely to t squared. This thing is 1, and so in the end, the denominator is t squared. That's one thing. And then for u prime of t, remember, we replaced the first column by the inhomogeneous term, which was t minus t. The rest was still the homogeneous solution. So we have t cosine t, t sine of t, divided by our denominator, so t squared. So in this case, it becomes t squared sine of t, so not sine squared, just sine of t, plus t squared cosine t over t squared. And so in the end, this just becomes sine of t plus cosine t. And let's do the same spiel with v prime. So v prime of t, that is t sine of t, and then t cosine t, minus t cosine t, and then t minus t over t squared. And that becomes minus t squared sine of t. So yeah, minus t squared, and then plus t squared cosine t over t squared. And so we end up getting this time minus sine of t plus cosine. Plus cosine t. And then remember, we just need to integrate. So u prime of t is sine of t plus cosine t. And so u of t is integral of that. Sine of t plus cosine t dt. And so in this case, u of t is minus cosine t plus sine of t. It's one thing. And then v prime was minus sine of t plus cosine t. And so v is just the integral of that. Integral of minus sine of t plus cosine t dt. And then that becomes, I believe, cosine plus sine. Cos t plus sine of t. So we get u and v, and now we just need to plug this in. So step 3. So xp of t is minus cosine t, so u plus sine t times the first solution, so t sine t, and minus t cosine t, plus v times the second solution, so plus cosine t plus sine t, and then t cosine t, and then t sine t. Now, if I don't tell you simplify the answer, then that would be perfectly fine. But in this case, I would tell you simplify the answer, because turns out this becomes much easier if you do so. So in this case, we get minus cosine t plus sine t times t sine t, and then minus cosine t plus sine t times minus t cosine t. That was the first term. Now the second term plus cosine t plus sine t. T cosine t cosine t. And same thing with sine. Again, bear with me. I know it looks like your worst nightmare, but it'll end up becoming your most beautiful dream. So cosine t plus sine t, t sine t. All right, and let's see what we get. Well, this becomes minus t cosine t sine t plus t sine square t plus t cosine square t plus t sine of t cosine t, and t cosine square t, so the minuses cancel out, minus t sine of t cosine t plus t cosine t sine of t, and then plus t sine squared of t. And if you ever like math is ugly and not beautiful, this is for you. Well, the cross terms, they simplify, boom, 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 boom. And then for the other terms, well, you can factor out t, and you get sine squared plus cosine squared, and t cosine squared plus sine squared. And in the end, your particular solution becomes the following: tt, and that's the t. Hand drop. So in other words, your particular solution is just tt. Again, whoa, what an adventure. So we went through like all this horrible trick to actually find a very elegant particular solution. So var of par can be nice sometimes.